Society looks at schizophrenia either with indifference or fear. And it's both experiences are born of ignorance.
Some of the things I wish I had known earlier about schizophrenia is that it's not a moral problem or a problem with your intellect. It's simply a chemical imbalance in the brain.
Really, just in recent years, I've gotten the education to realize that it is an illness. It is a medical illness. And I think in the past I thought, get a grip, you know.
It's not a book written to tell you how and what to do as a dad or a mom. For me, the lesson I have learned is that I don't have all the answers.
Schizophrenia is not caused by bad mothering. It's not split personality. It's not a character flaw. It is a disorder of the brain.
Society views schizophrenia as a person having split personality or a person who is extremely violent or dangerous.
I don't know of any other illness that has the stigma attached to it that schizophrenia has.
Those stereotypes really bother me because I don't look at myself as a violent person. I don't have a split personality.
We live normal lives. I live a normal life, for the most part at least. Normal's way overrated, so.
What we can work to do is to reduce the fear and reduce the stigma, just like we've done with so many other issues over the years.
When I was a teenager, I worked hard at school. I did a lot of things for other people. I felt like I wanted to empathize with other teenage girls. So I just decided one day that I was going to write a book for teenage girls.
I'm the youngest of two daughters. I have one older sister, Lindsay.
I had a pretty normal childhood. I went through everything that most kids go through. School, learning right and wrong.
I'm a clinical psychologist, and I specialize in schizophrenia, both in terms of my research career and clinically. And I'm also somebody who had a brother, my brother Henry, with schizophrenia.
I'm an advocate for people with mental illness. My son was diagnosed with schizophrenia in 1995.
I went into medicine to really get involved with people's lives and to feel like I was making a difference. The majority of my time is spent in the community with my patients, working on their recovery. There's a lot of variation from patient to patient in people with schizophrenia. Some folks are very disheveled, very disorganized, and this is part of their disease. Other folks, you would meet them and you could not tell the difference between them and your next door neighbor. Their symptoms might be so well hidden that you would have no clue that they have schizophrenia.
I was having the time of my life. I was having a ball. And then I started experiencing hallucinations and voices, and things started to change very rapidly.
My son has been an adventure. You never know ahead of time where the challenges are going to be in life.
The symptoms got progressively worse during my years in college. I dropped out eventually because of signs of stress, or what I thought was stress. I had a financial situation with my school. I dropped out of school. I moved from Atlanta to California. I started a new job. I started living in a new place. It was just a whole bunch of stress at one time.
I started to feel differently probably at age 16 or 17. I started having more introspection and almost paranoid thoughts at that time. I just had times when I felt so sad and so distressed, and I didn't really know why, and I was trying to figure it out. One day I remember I just felt like things were different.
The most common symptoms of schizophrenia are what we call the positive symptoms and the negative symptoms. The positive symptoms are the things like hearing voices, having false beliefs, the CIA is after me, or people are talking about me. The negative symptoms refer to things like decreased motivation, difficulty with energy, not having a lot of facial expression. So those are what we call the negative symptoms.
I started hearing voices, and it was not unfamiliar voices. It was mostly characterized voices of my friends. I started getting really paranoid because obviously, you know, the voices were saying things that disturbed me.
In the beginning, sometimes I heard one voice, other times I heard multiple voices. I remember the voices being very demeaning and mean. They told me I was dishonored to my family.
I don't necessarily hear voices. It's just like a loudspeaker in your brain or a switch that you can't turn off because it's all of these unwanted thoughts. I'm just trying to get through what's going on in my brain and trying to shut off my brain, and I never can.
I really literally thought that it was something everybody goes through and I just needed to learn how to handle it, learn how to accept it.
We use our brain to assess ourselves. So should it come as a surprise that for many patients with this illness, in fact it turns out 50%, one of the symptoms is anosognosia. They don't understand they're mentally ill, or in shorthand we could just call it poor insight.
Ultimately, a patient will have a first break, and that is usually when they come to the medical attention.
Really and truly, my first break came about when I was 17 years old. I'd been trying to get people to realize that there was something going on with me that wasn't quite normal, and wound up getting into trouble. I was checked into an adolescent rehab center, so to speak, and was put on medication there, and that was when I received my first diagnosis. Stopped taking my medication after about a year. It didn't take very long for my symptoms to start returning. I thought, if I don't do something, you know, to get some help, I'm gonna end up, you know, dying or something.
There was a time when I had to intervene, and I had to do something very hard, which was to have him arrested. From my perspective, I was doing that to save his life.
My son came home in the middle of the night as a college student, talking bizarrely and unsafely. I was completely stunned and shocked and had no idea at all what was going on. Once you get to that point, the only thing you know to do is take them to a doctor. And when you can't get them to the doctor because they won't go, then the next thing is the police. I called the police, and it turned out that these police officers were not familiar in handling these types of issues. I began to talk to them and explain what was going on and convince them to take my son to the hospital rather than taking him to jail. After that experience, I realized what can happen in a confrontation between police officers who are not trained and a person with mental illness, and even the family members.
I became very suicidal at that time. So I took all the medication at once, and I can't remember a whole lot about that night, but I broke into my parents' houses. I took keys to my sister's car and drove off in that, and just a wild night.
Oftentimes, it's the family who forces the person into treatment. This can cause a lot of resentment.
They really didn't know how else to help me, so they decided to press charges in hopes that the judge would court order long-term treatment.
I told him several years ago that with all the difficulties we've had, that I feel honored to be his dad, the man that is his dad. That's a privilege.
He's been a vital relationship in my life. I don't know where I'd be or what I'd do without him, because he's saved me several times from just certain destruction.
Actually, I learned of my diagnosis through an unfortunate crime I committed while experiencing psychosis. I was hearing voices, I was extremely paranoid, and I was very confused and afraid at the time. I'd actually stolen a military truck from the airport and was arrested for that crime. While in jail, I stopped eating, drinking, speaking, living. The symptoms got progressively worse, and they didn't know what was wrong with me at first. And so later on, I got committed to a state hospital where they diagnosed me, and they treated my schizophrenia.
Oftentimes, the person does not recognize that anything is wrong with them. It's not denial, it's actually a feature of the illness. And due to this lack of insight, they resist treatment. And this can be very challenging.
When I was 21 years old, my brother became psychotic for the first time. And like many family members and many doctors, I got him to the hospital by calling 911. During this really difficult time in my relationship with my brother where we were fighting, I was learning to become a therapist, and I was picking up some tools that were really helpful. And one of the first things I learned was to stop arguing with him and stop debating the question of his being mentally ill. I would never tell someone, stop hallucinating. Would you just cut it out? You know, you're being immature. And yet, those are the kinds of things I said to my brother. Well, it wasn't denial. He wasn't being stubborn. This was a symptom of the illness not under his control.
Initially, I did not know that I had schizophrenia, so I refused to take the medication. I was in denial. I didn't have any insight. While I was in jail and I wasn't cooperating with my attorney, they had me take a competency test, which I failed, and I was sent to the state hospital to recuperate and to get treated for having schizophrenia. And just before I was sent to the hospital, my family actually talked to my attorney and had the judge mandate medication compliance because I wasn't coming out of it.
It's common sense. If you don't think you're sick, you're not going to take medicine. And one of the most devastating things about the symptom of lack of insight is it isolates people with the illness. It drives them away from their loved ones. It drives them away from the mental health professionals that could help them. And they end up alone and isolated.
I was very angry. I was almost hateful towards my family because I didn't want them to know that I had this problem, and I denied it. I started to lose my connection with my friends in a way, my joy with them. I started having thoughts of harming myself, and that was very new. I needed help. I was very depressed and angry and in denial for many years. I went to college and I started kind of forgetting where I was, what I was doing at the time, and I wandered around campus.
Many of my patients have had actually their first break either towards the end of high school or beginning college years.
What led to my first hospitalization was my suicide attempt. I think I overdosed on my medication. I was feeling very alone, and I felt like I had let my mom and dad down.
I don't talk about suicide, I talk about the mortality rate. 50% of our patients with schizophrenia will attempt suicide once. And if they're not in treatment, they're more likely to die from suicide.
In 2007, I was diagnosed with schizophrenia with paranoid type, and that came as a shock. I think that that was a real turning point when I started to accept my disorder, because then I started accepting the support that other people were giving me, and it was okay finally.
After my doctor sat me down and talked to me and told me what my diagnosis was, he told me that I had hope and I can live a fulfilling life. And so I felt a bunch of relief.
We don't have a cure for schizophrenia, but I'll tell you, we have so many tools to make the lives of people with this illness so much better.
Medication has always been the mainstay of treating the symptoms of schizophrenia, but medication alone is not enough. We want people to be on the minimal amount of medication to treat their symptoms.
I have a psychiatrist who prescribes a shot, and I just take a shot. I don't take any pills.
Often managing schizophrenia takes multiple medications. Long-acting therapy is one of the ways that schizophrenia can be treated. Basically, it is an injection that can be given either every 2 weeks or every 4 weeks.
I take my medication orally at nighttime. If I did not take my medication, I would not be here today.
There are side effects to these medications, and the practitioner and the patient together need to weigh the benefits against the risks.
No, there's no such thing as a magic pill. It takes a lot more than just medication. It also includes going to support groups and just getting support from family and friends. My treatment team includes my therapist, my psychiatric doctor, and my peers.
I have a lot of support from a lot of people, but my mom, she's been the main person in my life, she and my sister.
She's worked very hard to get in place a treatment team, and she has a positive attitude about it, and she inspires me by that.
It's really important that you let your care providers know exactly what's going on, exactly how you're doing. If you hide it from them, or if you make up stuff, they're not going to be able to help you. They're not going to be able to help you at all.
You can call a doctor when your loved one's in the hospital and say, I know you can't tell me if my son or daughter or brother is here, but if they are there, I'd like to say a few things. And you can give them the medical history, you can tell them if they're a suicide risk, you can really help. The other thing is to try and convince your loved one to give the doctors permission to include you. It's shocking how many times people are discharged from an acute psychiatric hospitalization and the family doesn't even know what the discharge plan is.
Oftentimes I think patients have a lot of difficulty trusting healthcare providers. It takes a lot of time and a lot of experience to build that relationship and for the patients to realize that you are on their side.
If there's one thing I learned from my experience with my brother, is to just shut up and listen. And when I started listening to him, everything changed for the positive.
I'm able to talk about it now because it's in the past, and I know that I've survived it, and I'm coping with it and continuously working on my recovery. And I talk about it a lot just to share my story with other people so that they know that they can recover as well.
Recovery is a lifelong journey, and it involves certainly management of symptoms, but it also involves having a reason to get up in the morning, something you're looking forward to doing that day.
What are some of the consequences of not taking our medication? Do we have a volunteer reader? I'm a peer mentor in the Atlanta area. I do support groups at various organizations like rehabilitation centers, county mental health centers, and transitional housing. Did I miss anyone? Yes, sir.
Turn to positive memory. I like that.
Try to keep a sense of humor.
Yes. My blog, Overcoming Schizophrenia, is it's thriving. It's great. And as you scroll down, we have some links and resources and stuff like that. It's become a great resource for other people living with the diagnosis, or also for family members and other people interested in learning more about schizophrenia. And out of the blog came about my nonprofit organization, Embracing My Mind. And that was a way for me to help people outside of the website, hands-on, get the peer support that they need.
Advocacy work turns the grief and frustration of mental illness into hope and constructive action. I'm involved in policy development. I deal with legislative issues. With crisis intervention team, I believe we've accomplished a lot in public safety, not only for the person with mental illness, but in keeping everyone safe.
I started to accept the illness, but I saw it as what I deal with and what I have, rather than the definition of who I am. So because of that, I have a lot more confidence in being able to speak out for others who maybe don't feel that way about themselves. I had an idea for a column, and I contacted the director of commentary, and I said I just wanted to be a positive voice in the community. So he said, I can't offer you a column at this time, but I can offer you a blog. It's exciting for me, and I've written them for about a year.
I work as a peer specialist up at the county jail.
All too often, people in jail don't have any hope and don't know that they can reach a recovery. And Josh is letting them know.
The most meaningful thing about that work is because I'm using the same system to give back to the community that has actually given to me the life I'm living.
He goes into the probation office now and facilitates a support group there. First time ever in Georgia.
Sharing my story is a privilege, and it's important for me because it reinforces my recovery, my life. It helps me stand on my own 2 feet every time I share it.
I think I have a lot in common with my friends. We all have a mental illness diagnosis. We're all in recovery together, even though we don't have the same diagnosis. Triple word again. Wow. We go to events together. We go to support groups regularly and interact with each other regularly. And we just share what's going on in our lives. Game over. Hey!
My hope for people with schizophrenia is that they find at least one person in their lives who will listen to them, respect their opinion, and lead them to the table, lead them to treatment.
My relationship with my mom has changed over the years. She's always been there for me, always communicating with my doctor and my counselors and other family members.
Oh, Rebecca tells great stories. We laugh about some of the hard times.
We encourage each other, and she tells me how important exercise is.
You know what you're doing now?
Yeah.
That is a powerful start.
Yeah, well, I can do it.
Just getting out the door, that's just the biggest thing.
I know of folks who are living with their parents, and the person with schizophrenia is truly contributing to the household, helping with chores, helping with income, helping with work, and it's a very cooperative sort of arrangement.
I've moved in with Dad and brother right now.
You get that?
Yeah.
You got it?
Being close to family is something I've always needed.
Hey, bro, could you get the door?
Having them, in the same household is a plus for me. I'm just optimistic that this living situation is going to be really good for me.
Here I come.
I'd say a good sign that things are going well is the friendships and the community that I have with others.
Three amigos. All right. That's fun.
Millions of people in America are living with this disease.
I would say to people who are struggling with schizophrenia, just like me, to know that you're not alone and that there is hope.
Deep down inside, we're all people with different struggles, and I learn from them every day.
People are thinking about people with schizophrenia in a different way than they did 30 years ago when I got into this field. First of all, they're recognizing they're people first, and they have a disease. Secondly, they understand this disease is treatable.
Wow, I come a long way. Because my symptoms were very bad. It was scary, and I didn't even understand what was going on with me. But my symptoms have gotten progressively better with time and with the treatment and with the medication and support.
Well, Ashley is a wonderful friend. She's very encouraging, always have a bubbly, sweet attitude.
I feel like it's given me a newfound purpose. When I went to college, I was going there to study business, and now I know what type of business I would like to own, and that's a nonprofit dealing with mental health.
My 3 top goals for the next few years are probably to finish another book about my journey, to continue to advocate, to get out of my apartment more.
Well, every day's a new day with Rebecca.
My long-term goal for Josh is that he be independent and able to survive, take care of his own affairs.
Not be completely independent, we need our support, but just to be able to manage, and be in control of my own life.
The misconception is that this disease is a deteriorating disease that only ends poorly. It's just not true. It doesn't have to be.
Looking back, I felt like, I was sentenced to die when I first heard the news. But now I honestly wouldn't have it any other way, because life has been so rich and rewarding for me. And just having the diagnosis has been kind of like the difference between seeing the world in black and white and seeing the world in color.
We can really make dramatic changes. We can impact the symptoms. And we have tools that we can share with people with schizophrenia. We can help them to learn how to function in life again and how to lead meaningful lives.